the wine that funded Napoleon's wars, the blood of kings series. You've done it before. Maybe it was a birthday, a promotion, a Tuesday that needed saving. Someone hands you a glass of champagne, the bubbles rise, you clink, you drink, and for a moment everything feels a little more significant than it was 5 minutes ago. We've been doing this for centuries, opening bottles to mark the moments that matter, but almost nobody stops to ask, where did this come from? Why this drink? Why these bubbles? And why, of all the wines in the world, did this one become the drink of emperors? Here's what your history teacher never told you. Champagne didn't just celebrate Napoleon Bonaparte's victories, it paid for them. The vineyards of northeastern France in strip of chalky soil 2 hours east of Paris were so deeply entangled with his military campaigns that when his armies marched across Europe, cases of champagne went with them, not just to drink at victory dinners, to bribe foreign dignitaries, to soften enemy generals, to negotiate terms that no cannon could win. Wine was a weapon. And one family, one winery was at the center of all of it. His name was Jean Moët. In 1800, he was 34 years old, running the winery his grandfather had built on the banks of the Marne River in Épernay. By every measure, he should have been a minor regional businessman selling bottles to local merchants, managing harvests, worrying about frost. Instead, he became Napoleon's personal wine supplier, his friend, his confidant, the man the emperor called on when he needed something that power alone couldn't buy. Jean understood something that very few people in history have fully grasped, that wine is never just wine, it is trust poured into a glass. It is culture compressed into a bottle. It is the oldest diplomatic language the world has ever known, and he was about to use it to help reshape the map of Europe. Between 1800 and 1815, Napoleon fought nearly 60 major military engagements across Europe. He remade borders, toppled monarchies, installed his brothers as kings. And at almost every significant moment before the campaigns, after the victories, during the negotiations, there was champagne. Moët Chandon. Napoleon visited the estate at Épernay multiple times. He awarded Jean the Legion of Honor, France's highest civilian decoration. He ordered cases sent ahead of his armies, to be opened at the moment of victory in cities from Madrid to Moscow. The symbolism was deliberate. When you opened a bottle of French champagne in a conquered city, you weren't just celebrating. You were saying, France was here, France won, France defines what civilization looks like. But the strategy had a shadow side. As Napoleon's wars expanded, so did the demand. And as the demand expanded, so did the exposure. The Moët estate was not just a supplier to the French Empire, it was now visible, known, and vulnerable. When Allied armies pushed back into France in 1814, they knew exactly where to go. They came in waves, Prussian soldiers, Russian cavalry, Austrian infantry, all of them marching through the Champagne region on their way to Paris, all of them stopping at the cellars. The records show it plainly. Soldiers broke into the caves at Épernay and drank. They drank until they couldn't stand. They loaded wagons with cases and drove them east. They took what years of labor had built in the span of an afternoon. Jean Moët's losses in those final months of the Napoleonic Wars exceeded 600,000 francs. Napoleon abdicated in April 1814. He returned briefly, was defeated finally at Waterloo in June 1815, and was gone. The empire was over, and in the cellars of Épernay there was almost nothing left. Here is what happened next, and this is the part that changes everything. The soldiers who looted those cellars went home, back to Prussia, back to Russia, back to Austria and England and the Netherlands, and they told people what they had tasted. Jean Moët had not lost his greatest asset in those raids. He had distributed it. Within a decade, orders for Moët champagne were arriving from every royal court in Europe, from the very aristocrats whose armies had just destroyed his cellars. Because their soldiers had come back from France talking about this wine, this impossible, beautiful, effervescent wine, and everyone who hadn't tasted it wanted to. The looting had been, without anyone planning it, the greatest marketing campaign in the history of wine. By 1832, the house had expanded beyond anything Jean's grandfather could have imagined. Today, Moët Chandon produces roughly 30 million bottles a year and is the best-selling champagne on earth. It survived Napoleon, it survived his enemies, it survived the wars, the raids, the losses, Because the thing about great wine and perhaps about great ideas is that once people have tasted it, they can't stop talking about it, even when they were the ones who stole it. The next time someone hands you a glass of champagne at a birthday, a wedding, a Tuesday that needed saving, you're holding something older and stranger than you knew. You're drinking the drink that crossed Europe in soldiers' packs, that's often the tables of kings, that was stolen, scattered, and somehow survived to fill your glass 2 centuries later. It was never just a celebration drink. It was always a survival story. Raise a glass, Wineholiq, where obsession meets education. New episodes every Monday and Thursday. Subscribe and we'll see you in the cellar.